Alright, welcome back to the Roblox course, and in this lecture we're going to take a look at the API references over on the Roblox developer manual, basically. And the idea here is that I wanted to give you sort of the autonomy to actually look up some of the issues before you ask questions that could be easily answered by looking at this API reference manual. Because in the end, you know, you can't always rely on questions. Sometimes, of course, they're useful, but I would argue that if you can use this makes you at least 10 times more powerful in terms of programming for Roblox than if you don't have any of this, material at hand. So, first things first, I've of course included this as a resource here, and this is what you're going to see first. So this is basically the API reference manual. So it has all sorts of classes, data types, and functions, and all of that are used for Roblox creations. So for Roblox games, and the first thing that might stand out is, for example, the part, right? So let's just look at the part. We've already seen what a part is. We've instance.new a part, like here. We have created parts in the Explorer. We've resized them and all of that jazz. And here there is a short description. So we've always have a very short description of what this particular object basically is, right? So as you can see, right, part is a physical object, and when it's in the workspace, you can move and interact with it. We've all seen that. How can you edit a part? This is how you create a new part. There are different types of parts. We've not seen that yet, but we have seen normal parts. And then we can also see the properties here for the specific part, or also inherited from base part. And then we can also see down here the functions, right, that are inherited from base part. And then completely down we have events, and we've already seen the touched event, for example, right, fired when a part comes in contact with another part, right? So we've all seen that before, and well, actually, like in game, and we've actually seen how this operates. So this is pretty cool, right? So we can actually look at what these things do, and if we go back to the API references, there are of course some other things that we can also take a look at. Those are basically the frequently used classes and services. We can also look at the Lua references down here. So we've seen some of the libraries, right? The math library. I've done an actual lecture on string library. We've seen a few things of that. The tables and coroutines. Some of the other things we have not taken a look at, because I didn't deem them as important right now, but you could, of course, look into them as well. And then what's really good is you can filter classes here. So, for example, if we say, looking at the last lecture where we looked at the services, and we're like, oh, well, I wanted to know about the players, then you can just type in players, and as you can see, down here we get the gameplay players. So this is the service that we might take a look at, and then there's also player scripts and starter player scripts. So we can also take a look at that, but let's click on players and let's see what this is. As you can see, this is a service. So it always says, okay, what a service is, or whether or not a class is a service. And then it also says, hey, you can't use the instance.new to actually create this object because, well, it's a service, right? And the idea is that a service cannot be created. There is always only one service of each type, so to speak. So there's a player service, there was the server script service, and each of those is only there once. So there can't be two player services because that doesn't make sense. And yeah, then we can see, for example, the properties of this particular service, and then it's the functions of this particular service. And yeah, all of that. So the idea here is that this is a great resource, and I really highly recommend that if you ever want to know something, you know, about a particular class, oh, how does this work? I don't understand that. You can always go in here and look at this. So for example, I don't know, maybe you want to know what the terrain is about, right? We've not taken a look at that yet. And then you can see that a few things there. You can see the properties that are there with a short little description. So I'm actually, every time I look at this API reference, I'm always impressed because it is actually really well done, and it documents a lot of things really well. And so I really recommend, if there's a certain topic that maybe doesn't work, that you first go into the API references and look at it a little bit and play around with it a bit. And then if it still doesn't work, of course, you can always ask a question and I'll be sure to respond. However, like I said, it does make sense to give you a little bit of autonomy here to basically make you even more powerful with your knowledge, basically. Yeah. Right, and as a last thing, if you, for example, want to look at some of the other services that there are, you can, of course, type in service here, and then you're going to get basically also a list of all services that are in here. So, for example, we could take a look at the marketplace service right here, right? So this is under the monetization group, and the marketplace service, we can actually see some things as well, the properties and the functions. And the great thing here is that all functions here have a very nice description to them, right? Sometimes those descriptions are available inside of Roblox Studios and sometimes not, so it is not a bad idea to actually go in here and look at those descriptions, because they can save you a lot of hassle, because usually the name of the function is, is very descriptive, but sometimes a description, of course, is insanely valuable in this case as well. So yeah, that is just a basic overview over the API references. I highly recommend checking them out and just looking at them a little bit, especially if you have a certain thing that you want to do. They might actually yield an answer to your conundrum. Yeah, so that was it for this lecture, and I hope you enjoyed it. If there are any questions, of course, always feel free to ask, and I'll be sure to respond. And yeah.